Hey, thanks for finding your way back to the Let's Get Into React series. This episode is a solo one, just me. I know, disappointing, right? Anyway, the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics is officially wrapped, and I want to impart on you loyal listeners and viewers my top 8 takeaways and my final thoughts on these games. Da, 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 da. So, what a games they were. But I'm starting off with a very interesting hot take. We need a neutral site for the Olympics. As long as the IOC still names a new host for each Olympics, it's likely that communities will suffer and authoritarian governments will continue to receive support. It's long overdue, but the IOC needs to finally find a permanent home for the Olympics. I think this will do a couple things. A permanent home will finally allow the athletes to shine. Yes, I realize that the interesting pageantry and cultural traditions of certain countries that gets suffused into the opening ceremonies and things like that will be missed. They might have to tweak that a little bit. But I think that the IOC's insistence on staying neutral, they keep saying this, if they actually want to stay neutral, they need to actually have a site independent of a country. Right now, the IOC has to appease the few remaining countries who are willing to host this increasingly costly Olympics. In doing so, it allows governments to use the Olympics as a PR boost. And for some countries, China being one, it's a way to kind of do a rug pull on some of the atrocities and other pretty nasty things going on. So that's my first take. Second, star power is a mixed bag. So the US had a number of prominent athletes who got the whole Wheaties box treatment. Nathan Chen, Michaela Schifrin, Shaun White, Chloe Kim. These guys and gals got the prominence. They got the prestige on the front page of the Peacock app and so on and so forth. And a lot of them did quite well. Chloe Kim succeeded in defending her half pipe gold. Nathan Chen achieved redemption after faltering in 2018, winning gold in the men's singles competition. But basically, there were so many other more compelling, interesting storylines to come out. You had Elena Myers-Taylor becoming the most decorated Olympic bobsled American. You had the curling team that it kind of started off as like this goofy thing, but became this really feel-good story. You had Timothy LeDuc. He made history when they became the first publicly out non-binary, Winter Olympian. So, I mean, I think all the publicity and press on a couple people, putting them in the limelight, it brings up this whole Simone Biles mental health issue thing, right? Michaela Schifrin had objectively, performance-wise, she had 3 did not finishes, but the way that they sort of harped and talked about how, you know, she was destined to be the most decorated Olympic athlete in U.S. women's skiing. You know, if we forget these are humans first. They have bad days, and I think the whole approach to how we discuss performance and achievements needs to change. Number 3, Russian doping, IOC. Oh my gosh, what a joke. What a joke. So say what you want about the Russian Olympic Committee. Basically, 2014 Sochi Games comes out, and Russian athletes are found to have had a systemic doping program. Going forward, Russian athletes are not going to be allowed to compete under the Russian flag. When they win gold, the national anthem isn't going to be played. So fast forward to 2022, we have Russian athletes competing under this ROC federation, and we have more doping controversy. We have a 15-year-old Russian athlete who wins gold, performance is off the charts, best we've ever seen possibly. Comes out that she had failed a drug test back in December, and the Russian anti-doping agency, kind of a misnomer there, really, anti-doping. But anyway, they provisionally lifted her suspension upon appeal. Basically, the Olympics, unfortunately, were tarnished by this whole doping thing. Yes, it came from Russia. There are non-Russians who are doping as well. I realize that. I mean, my hot take here is that the IOC should have banned Russia from competing in the Olympics. Full sentence stop. Yes, there are Russian athletes who did their due diligence, who participated clean, who did the right thing. But we tried this 2-prong approach, and it just frankly didn't work. So it's finally time to ban Russia from competing in the Olympics. I don't know if that's a 4 or 8 year suspension, but it's got to happen. Number 4, Norway, essentially, think of Norway as Minnesota in terms of population. They broke the record for most gold medals with 16. Frankly, that's amazing. With all the nations, all the different athletes competing, to win 16 golds, pretty impressive. One of the reasons why they did that was really simple. They're good at a lot of sports with many events that make it possible to take many medals. That was kind of the formula that the head of the Norwegian committee, basically that was a verbatim quote. And he's right. I mean, they have a lot of incredible athletes, but they're in events with a lot of medals and they take advantage of that. So go Norway. Number 5, judging miscues, mischief, subterfuge, say what you want. So many sports are subjective to human judges. Issues abounded. Sports like speed skating, which I realize, yes, there are judges that help you with the disqualifications for pushing and shoving, things like that. But I really wasn't even aware they had judges until this Olympics. Snowboarding was a bit of a mess when I guess all of a sudden it was about amplitude that kind of garnered the most points. I don't know how to fix this, folks. I mean, I don't think making more events with just the fastest time winning is going to fix a lot. I mean, robot judges, it's going to be a hard one to fix. But as I was doing research into this and into these games, this kept coming up, the judging. We made some improvements. We've changed how figure skating is judged, but a lot more work to come. Number 6, taking a little bit of a left turn here. The Peacock streaming service that NBC provided really is getting rave reviews. For the simple reason was there's 2 reasons. One, it worked. For $10, you got access to an app with unlimited coverage of all the live events, and essentially navigating from sport to sport, event to event, and even round to round. People are saying it was great. You could watch live matches. You could view the upcoming schedule. There was a ton of cool little recaps. There were those, as I mentioned previously, those deep dives into those prestige American athletes where you wanted to learn, what they have a breakfast, where they were from, where they went to school, their whole sort of story, their whole narrative, which for some people is really important. I mean, basically, Peacock gave an all access pass to the Olympics in a way that people wanted in Tokyo didn't get. So basically, yeah, pretty impressive that they were able to pull this off. This is going to be the new norm going forward. Cable cutting is taking an effect on ratings. I watched a lot of my tablet and phone. You did too, I'm sure. There's YouTube. People are digesting and taking in Olympic coverage. Is just not going to be the same way it was when it was 8 p.m. Everything was not live. You had that really packaged 8 to midnight kind of NBC primetime. That stuff's over. They're still going to have that. But I mean, this Olympics really blew out of the water and people wanted coverage. They got coverage and generally they like the coverage. Number 7. So give it to Russia to provide another huge issue. Basically 15-year-olds, there's no way they should be competing in the Olympics. Young athletes' vulnerabilities to exploitation by the very adults who are supposed to protect them and coach them. I mean, this came to the limelight again. There was a huge issue with this 15-year-old individual. I can't pronounce her name. I apologize, but she's the Russian figure skater. It'll be in the show notes. Basically, the entire Russian team, it was essentially coaches yelling, belittling, scolding. The minimum age needs to be 18. There's no reason why 15-year-olds should be treated as adults doing adult things. The Olympics keeps going younger and younger. It's weird that like the 15-year-old body is the only body capable of providing apparently these tight 4 quad jumps for figure skating, and going back to the summer games with gymnastics, basically by the time you're 18, you're not at the pinnacle of your sport. It just seems silly to me. We've got to kind of bring back Olympics to, I mean, above 18. I think 18 is the minimum age, no questions asked there. Lastly, my number 8 takeaway, my final concluding thought for you all is this Olympics was the Olympics of a lot of things, but it was the Olympics of climate change, perhaps rearing its ugly face. It was an Olympics where all the snow was artificially created. We also had in Sochi, we had, the Winter Games held at basically the most tropical, temperate climate Russia could provide. Didn't make a lot of sense there. In the Beijing Games, we had several events that it was too cold, too windy. unsafe conditions. Look, the climate is changing, and the Olympics very much depends on outdoor events that are in elements that are beyond people's control. So in 30 years, I don't know what it's going to look like, but climate change is here and is affecting the games. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from feedback from all of you. This was a Let's Get Into It React series, and good night.